Hey, good evening, and welcome to the Power of Now. I'm Coach Mitchell,
And I'm Coach Dan.
and together we are MD Coaching and
Consulting.
Consulting. Listen, we are so happy to have you here with us tonight because we really want to talk about, I guess, if we summed it up, our moral compass,
Yes.
our moral compass, and
I'll say,
yeah,
before we get into subject matter,
yes,
first acknowledge if there's anybody online and in a moment of gratitude.
yes, I'm sorry. I was forging ahead. I was so excited about tonight's topic and to being back in front of our, just being in front of the lens. So go ahead, Coach.
All right. Well, first, I just want to again express our gratitude to one of our group members who was so kind to gift us with a new mic set, which we haven't gotten installed yet. Waiting on to hear back from the company to help walk through the setup. But
Coach, it's not a set, it's a system.
yes, it's a system. All right. So I'd like to thank my longtime friend and frat brother, Dr. Alfred Parchment, for gifting us a audio system, which we hope to get up and running. And just to say this, he's the second person who gifted us, audio equipment.
Yes.
So, again, just to do a fallback to of gratitude to
Bryant.
Mitchell, your brother Bryant, who also gifted us audio equipment. I hope, again, that's sincere that, you want to help us out. Or are you really thinking that we sound that bad?
Well, Coach, it could be a little bit of both based on our playbacks of some of the videos. We're learning through our growing pains. So we thank you for bearing with us. So we do understand. And we thank you that you support us and love us enough to want to see us present our best selves because you know who we are. So thank you.
Yes, so thank you again to what I call brother Dr. Alfred Parchment, again, my longtime friend and frat brother. Thank you.
Yep. And to my actual brother, my biological brother, Bryant Slade. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. All right. So tonight we want to really talk about our being willing to stand alone, to fight for what is right, or do we go along with the flow and allow our principles, our values, our morals to take a direct hit because we are not willing to stand for what is right?
Yes. Yep. We live in a space now where it's all about taking sides, and I think people do that because it's easy to pick a position, and quite often, it's a position that I don't know if we've given a lot of thought to. We just fall in line.
We just fall in line.
So we want to begin asking the question, have a discussion about, have you really assessed your own values and principles? And something we talked about early on, Coach Mitchell, would you really define what makes you you? So this topic came as a result of what I'm sure everybody may have seen, the recent mayhem down at a dock in Alabama, where it was just total mayhem with people, fighting.
And we're not here to say the fight was right or wrong. We're here to ask the question, just to peel back the layers on the actions, starting at the very top, the actions of the individuals that were involved and how it escalated. And just to throw out some questions, what could have been done differently? How could our moral compass, the fabric of who we are, have really played a part or a factor into changing the trajectory of the encounter that happened on that dock.
Yes, because one of the things about was our question that are you willing to do what is right? To stand alone, what's right? Is at any point in time do you really think about, am I doing the right thing? And again, as Coach Mitchell said, we're not here to tell you what to do or what is right or wrong. We're here to again bring awareness to maybe your thoughts and behavior, and maybe just get you to think differently, possibly.
Right.
Or as you say, peel back the layers on your own thought process.
Yeah, and as I like to say, let's just talk about it. Let's talk about what really transpired and maybe speculate a little bit about how people were really thinking or not in that situation.
And one of my things in our sessions is I always like to ask people, okay, regardless of what position you take, and we know everybody in today's society, everybody has an opinion, and people argue opinions, which one of my beliefs is don't waste time arguing opinions. You're entitled to yours, I'm entitled to mine, let's keep it moving. But the bigger question is, what can you learn from these situations? What can you learn that maybe will lead you to do things differently, do things in the moment, but that will have a better lasting impact, So it's really, again, for you to just have the awareness of your own thoughts and behaviors and emotions in a given situation.
And I think the key word is awareness.
Yes.
Awareness, because we can react in a moment in a situation, because, I was down for what was happening until I sat back and I'm looking at and assessing, like, if we really stop to think beyond everyone jumping on the bandwagon, what really happened there and why did it escalate?
Yes.
Why did it escalate?
So going back to your question, taking it from the top, and let's actually just give a little background. Again, for those who haven't seen the videos or the memes going around, because again, there was a lot of funny memes, and it became somewhat of a joke, but we want to kind of look at the other side, because again, people's lives are going to be changed, if not forever, at least in the immediacy. And people's lives could have been changed forever, just because of what escalated.
Exactly. And, the trajectory, like you said, of people's lives will be changed. And it will be forever, because this is not something that's going to ever be erased. It happened.
Yes.
It's an event in history that's imprinted upon their lives.
Yes.
Right? So let's talk about what that looks like.
Yes. So let's again, to give those who had not seen the video, to our understanding, and we watched several videos, different perspectives, it was simply this. An African American man who was working at the docks asked a group of white people who were on a boat.
Who were on a pontoon.
Yes, if they could move their boat. So the larger tourist boat, I forgot it was a Marriott boat, again, a large, kind of paddle boat, if I remember, so they could dock. And somehow in that request, we don't know how it was requested, we don't know what was said, but it turned into a fight where these gentlemen decided to, attack this single dock worker. Now, again, just to frame it, you had several white men beating up on an African American male.
Right, who was simply doing his job.
Yes, so we pretty much know the racial undertone basically became the theme.
Right.
Then, it also then became, because it escalated, it also became an opportunity for people to kind of turn it into a laughable situation. Now, there could be many reasons why people do that, but we want to kind of, again, turn it into a learning situation, because we take positions, we have our opinions, we laugh, we joke, but we don't learn, which is why we keep repeating.
Right.
And when I say we, I mean the collective
we. Right.
Mhm.
We're not looking at a deeper, we're not taking a didactic look into behaviors.
Yes.
Because that's basically what it boils down to,
Mhm.
how we behave and interact in certain situations.
Yes.
And this is not from an African American perspective. This is from a people perspective.
People perspective. So, again, people naturally want to.
How do we behave?
Yes.
And I think it went from 0 to 100, not because of the request, but because of the reaction to the request.
Yes.
And how do we change that? How if we take a step back and look at what could have transpired, how the response could have been much different than a melee breaking out.
Yes.
If we really looked at, I guess it boils down to our cognitive dissonance. How we rationalize things, and how we as humans feel like we have a superiority over one another. And that's not based on race. That's based on class. That's based on title. I mean, it could be a myriad of things, but how do we take a step back and look at really why are we responding in a negative or adverse way?
So going back to where you started is a question. Have you ever found yourself responding in an indignant way simply because someone asked you to do something? And the example that you gave when we were talking was, someone comes to you and asks you, can you move your car? Can you move your cart? Can you move yourself? Do you acquiesce by simply say, "Oh, absolutely, sure," or do you respond with an indignant way, such as, "No, I don't need to move."
And why?
Yes.
I mean, I think that's the question. Why do you react in that manner?
Right.
Or respond in that manner?
Now, when, again, you want to keep things flowing in your life, keep things flowing. And sometimes you keep them flowing by simply saying, sure. Does that make you feel less than to acquiesce to someone's request? That is a sincere request. Assuming they're just simply asking. And again, it could be different if someone they ask you in a disrespectful way, that may trigger you. But even then, does it trigger you in such a way that you then start making a series of bad decisions off of a simple request, which is what appears to have happened in this melee?
Right. But if someone is presenting themselves in a professional manner, in a professional uniform, and makes the request, I mean, that's no different in my eyes than a police officer asking you to move your car out of a no parking zone.
Yes.
I mean, why do you get perturbed when you know you're in the wrong?
Yes. And that's a whole other discussion. Go ahead.
I mean, to me, in looking at this video based on the footage, it was no different. Like the dock worker was simply doing his job and asking the platoon operator, listen, can you move your boat because we have a larger vessel coming in that needs the space in order to dock. Now, it could have gone more ways than the ultimate result in what we saw play out than it did, but it could have been, even if the platoon owner or operator was like, why do I have to move my boat? Because maybe he wasn't obvious to what was going on, aware of what was going on. that another boat had to come in and it was a bigger vessel, which was, it looked like 10 times larger than the
Yeah.
platoon boat, versus jumping out of the platoon boat and charging the security guard because of the request. It made absolutely no rational sense as to his reaction, right? So you have to ask or speculate that there was some impairment and not making excuses for this guy's behavior or the others that followed. What psychologically was going on? Or was there some impairment that skewed his better judgment,
You mean like
like alcohol or under the influence of a substance, whatever it may have been, that caused him to react and respond the way that he did, versus asking the why, being told why, and complying?
Yes.
That's simple.
And yet, what happened was, again, it just turned into, like I said, and I'm sure if you're not familiar with it, if you Google it, if you're on social media, you can find it. And because this was also, African Americans against whites, people focused on the racial component, which again, we get that.
Can I just caveat that? Because in the videos that I've seen, the very first responder to assist the security officer appeared to be another
Yes, a young white male.
employee, but a white male.
Yes.
So I wouldn't say in totality black against white, but because there were 4 white men who actually charged and, commenced to beating on this security guard, I see where it turned into a black and white
Yes.
issue.
And we want to turn it into, again, a human issue, because we want to ask, why was it so difficult to comply and keep things flowing? Because that's the objective. The objective is we want to keep things flowing in our life. And anytime we make a decision that stops our flow, we're only setting ourselves back. And what you saw here, and as it continued to escalate, now it stopped everybody's flow. So you want to ask yourself, as a learning, as a point of learning, is how will you react, or how do you react when confronted with a simple request or something that, I won't even say that's negative, because sometimes people just ask you because they need to get by. They need, how often do we see people who stop? And I think we just saw this not so long ago. Someone will stop and have a conversation in their vehicle in the middle of the street, and it's a totally oblivious. I won't say they're oblivious. I think they're much aware. But you're blocking traffic, or you're making inconvenience for other people, simply to
to fulfill whatever that immediate need is for them.
So are you of that mindset where you just totally don't care about how your actions impact others?
Right. I want to address Stacy's question. Well, her statement. It's not about, it's not what is said, it's how it's requested. I think that even in this, and I'll take this particular situation that we're talking about, this incident, that even if he said, move your boat, it didn't warrant 4 individuals bombarding and bum rushing him. Now, we can talk about his communication skills as from a professional level, and that would be some soft skills training that his employer should have invested in, knowing that he would be working with the public. But it should not have caused anyone who had any type of like we say, moral compass, as long as it wasn't an impaired one, because we know when you're under the influence that your judgment and your sensibilities go out the window. But it should not have caused anyone to react in a violent manner.
Yes.
It's simply move your boat, or no, I'm not going to move my boat. And then his next step should have been to escalate it to the next level of authority in his organization.
Yes. And I just want I'll take it one step higher. It's not just what was Center House requested, it's how I choose to respond.
Which is my point. Yes.
You know? So people may say things and they're entitled to say it, you know, but whether I allow myself to be offended by it, that's my decision. That's my choice. It's my choice to decide whether I'm going to ruin my day, possibly my tomorrow, because I didn't like what someone said or how they looked, you know, at me. You know, that was a classic thing, you know, growing up with, you know, you looking at me? So what if I am? Why does that bother you? you know. So we want to be mindful that, yeah, people may say and do a lot of things, and we cannot control that. But what we can control is how we respond. So the fact that, you know, even if it was requested in a disrespectful manner, think about it this way. You don't have to see that person ever again if you're able to move beyond that moment. But when you're not able to move beyond that moment, guess what? It's a pretty good chance you're going to see that person again, because you're going to probably see them in court.
In court, right.
You know?
And I, you know, we have to absolve the security officer a little bit, because he didn't have a chance based off of the video that I saw, right? The request was made and then he was charged.
Yes.
Then he was charged. He didn't have an opportunity to react, like, you know, back up off of me, because then it was 4-on-1. And I understand why people came to his rescue.
Yes. Oh, absolutely.
We understand that. But again, peeling back the layers and taking it from the top, how from just a humanistic perspective could the boater have responded differently to the request of this security guard that this whole thing would have been nothing?
Yes.
Yeah. It would not even have been a thing.
Right.
And I mean, that's everyday occurrences, right? People get requested to move out of illegal parking spots. They get requested to move up a little bit in a parking spot so someone else can move in. I mean, you get those types of requests every day. Why is it that this person felt that it was okay or offensive, not okay, but offensive to be asked a question?
Right.
To the point that it was so egregious in his mind that it turned to violence.
You know, you can always walk away and say your words, yeah. Because let's kind of take it from a different perspective. Assuming the boater chose to keep his words to himself, however he felt, assuming that the dock worker did say something in an offensive manner, he could have, again, you know what, just walked away and talked to people on boat. You know what, that no good, blah, blah. I mean, he could say whatever he wanted. Now, does the dock worker now have the right to say something to that person because they said something in that conversation with other people? But this is where we are. This is why people have lost control of self. Because
that's where it is right there.
If you say something to me and I don't like it, and I choose, you know what, I'm not going to give you a response. I'm going to walk away and I'm going to say my words just to get it out of my system. Now you want to come back at me again because of what I said. You've lost total control of yourself. And any time you blame someone else for your emotions or your behavior, you are a victim. In the conversation, you have to own your response. It may not be nice. It may not.
Not even feel good.
Right. It may not feel good. But you got to look beyond, you know what?
you really have to look beyond that immediate reaction and
Yes.
response
Mm.
and ask yourself, is it worth the risk of losing everything that I've worked for or everything that I am working towards?
Yes.
And Stacy, we see your question. I honestly cannot answer that question because I don't know. I was just basing, basically what we're talking about is based on a video that, or a couple of videos that I've seen. Don't know who owned what, just know that there was this melee that broke out because there was one person on the boat, whether it was the boat owner or not, that responded violently to the request,
Yes.
and then the melee broke out.
So that's one perspective. The other perspective that want to interject is the response of people who came to the dock workers' defense. And want to ask, are you willing, or in your life, have you ever had to come to someone's defense? Hmm? It could be physically or it could be verbally. In a situation where, you've heard me say on the show, and Coach Mitchell, you're well aware of the time I got thrown out of a corporate meeting because I came to someone's defense. And the person who was running the meeting, who allowed it to happen, the only thing he had to give back was ask me to leave the meeting because he knew damn well he was wrong.
Mhm.
You let someone basically belittle, take advantage, or even lie on a coworker. And me, I was a consultant, but my principles are, from leadership perspective, don't you ever let that happen. So I
Right.
called him out on it. And I called him out viciously to the point where maybe I was a little over top, maybe. I don't think so. But anyway, I was asked to leave the meeting because I came to someone's defense. So, and I've had moments where I risked even more to come to someone's defense. So you asked, have you ever had that situation? And those who have been around me over the years know that's kind of something I'm passionate about because I call people out. Yeah, what you say on social media, your opinion on what you're going to do, have you done it?
Right.
Have you risked something for your principles?
That's right.
Or your values?
That's right.
Otherwise, honestly, shut up and sit down when you want to talk to me. Because unless you've done that, you're just a spectator.
Absolutely, because it takes the courage, and not just courage and tenacity, but also you have to have that. I mean, it has to be something inherent within you.
Mhm.
You talk about defending individuals, and in the corporate setting, and I too have had that experience where I'm really rooting for the underdog, right?
Yes.
And being a senior leader in an organization, a lot of times, some of the frontline staff, they take the brunt
Mhm.
of, the dissatisfaction of a senior leader if something is not going on schedule or they're not able to get what they want.
Right.
And I recall an incident where a business analyst, we were in this business analytics session, and they were building a new process. And one of the senior VPs was berating the business analyst when the discussion should have been had with that person's senior VP. It should have been peer to peer. And I had to stop the conversation. And I had to actually admonish the senior VP for coming at the business analyst and pointing them back to his peer so that they could have a conversation on what needed to be the next steps.
Right.
That could have lost my job right then and there, but I stood for what was right because that person could not defend themselves in that situation or scenario. And there's been many other things that have occurred that I have stood for, as you have. So it is being able to stand for what is right, regardless of what the consequences are. And it doesn't always have to be an attack
Right.
in a physical form.
Mhm.
right? So are you willing to stand for what is right?
Mhm.
That's the bottom line. Are you willing to stand for what is right?
And to do that, you have to have a sense of right and wrong within yourself. You have to have a set of principles and values that you believe in that are strong, to you. And again, I just want to clarify Stacey's previous question. Went by. You know,
Which one?
yeah, it was the previous question, but just we're not here to judge about the right or wrong of that situation. You know, um, yes, it's a possibility that we don't know every aspect of the story. That's for others to determine. What we're asking is, if you are confronted with a situation, what decision would you make? Because here's what happens, and I wish I could remember the other story where I started challenging people. Everybody was back and forth with their opinions about, no, but what can you learn? Because anything else is irrelevant. It's not even your concern, based on what happens to the individuals, who's involved. And this is where we get lost in today's society with giving our opinions. The question is, how can we grow from all of this? Because we will go back and forth, debating opinions, never asking ourselves, this is a life lesson. And how can I benefit from it? How can we benefit from it? Because if we're all talking about trying to grow, well, these are opportunities. It doesn't have to happen to us. Sometimes we can just observe it. So,
Yeah, absolutely. And, that just goes back to where we really wanted to focus on how can we look at this situation, not from a race component,
Mhm.
but from a personal development
Yes.
aspect.
Mhm.
What can we learn from interacting with individuals? And what can we learn about ourselves and how we respond to what individuals may be asking of us? Are we taking affront because we feel privileged? We feel belittled. We feel like we're being disrespected, or do we fear that someone is mocking us for who we are? Right? I heard a statement about the Confederate flag and some of the people in the South who are not waving that flag because of the history behind the flag. They're holding on to the symbolism of what it means. And that is the fact that they are not happy that African Americans and people of color were made equal to. So that flag represents their position.
Yes. Mhm.
On where they stand, so that you as people know that, no, I don't agree that African Americans are equal to white Americans. So it's oppressive, but it's also used as an instrument of fear,
Mhm.
to perpetuate fear. Now, I can't say that that's what was going on the dock. Can't say that. But we can say that if we as people are aware of where others are coming from, our response can't be in kind, but it can be an instrument to help us deal with how to get around it.
Mhm. Because at the end of the day, or the end of the moment, we can only control ourselves. We cannot control all the things that happen to us. We cannot control other people's words, facial expressions, any of that. And to think that you can, you're fooling yourself. Honestly, it only shows your ignorance.
Not only that, but you're fueling the anger and bitterness and those emotions,
Mhm.
those negative emotions within yourself.
Yes.
So,
So we get caught up, and I think a lot of this has to do with ego. You know, we get caught up in the moment, and the ego says, "I have to win. I
mhm.
have to get the last word in. I have to be victorious." Not understanding your power comes in your response.
Yeah.
You see, I think this is a, a story that the spiritual master Buddha said when he was confronted with a situation where someone was heckling him in a when he was giving a talk, and he didn't acknowledge the person. And at the end of the talk, the person came to him and said, "I heckled you. I said many things to you, and you never responded." And his response to the individual was, "If someone were to give you a gift and you refused, who does the gift belong to?" Well, it belongs to the giver. He says the same way with anger. You see, when someone has anger and they're trying to give you their anger, you don't have to receive it. Therefore, they're stuck with it. That's where the self mastery, that's where the control comes in, because I can't control you. I can't, and to try to do that only creates more angst in me
Mhm.
to try to control another person. But I can't control how I respond. And I, said this for years, I can only be offended by the things that I believe, even if it's small, there's some truth in it. You see, if my self value, what I believe, if my beliefs of myself are so strong, then nothing you say can offend me. You're only showing your own weakness. As the old African proverb says, you're, you're no enemy outside uh, can attack you if there's no enemy within. I don't think that's the proper way of saying it, but you get my point. So in other
Get your
words,
point.
that there has to be something inside of you if you allow yourself to get offended by every little thing. You have to ask yourself why. And another reason why I say ego comes in, because I know people who, I don't know if they're aware of their language, but you might hear someone say something condescending to say a person behind the cash register, who might be working, and the person didn't say anything to them, but they come out their mouth with condescending remarks, but yet they think they have this awareness or this wokeness, all right, but yet they don't, because if you still look down on someone simply because of their job,
Mhm.
because you may be college educated or you may work,
Mhm.
and this person's only doing their job, you're
Mhm.
just as bad as those people on the dock.
Yeah, that's true.
So you ask yourself, look, the one thing I've shared in previous sessions, when I see someone new struggling to learn their job, I'm very patient with them, because as I would say to them, and when they're maybe apologetic, I'm really sorry, I'm trying, is listen, we've all been there.
Mhm.
And to think that you have not is very egotistical, because we've all had to learn something new. Even if you're college educated, at some point you arrived on a job, some point in your career, you were the newbie. And that's what that person is. They're
Yeah.
a newbie learning. So we need to, be patient and have an open mind and open heart in those interactions.
Exactly. Exactly. And I think that, there are quite a few people from that incident that probably woke up with a lot of regrets,
Mhm.
with a lot of regrets.
Mhm.
Either, whether they were impaired or not,
Yes.
they woke up with a lot of regrets, as a lot of us do when we don't make the best decisions and we allow our emotions to dictate
Yes.
our reactions. So it's always a good idea to check yourself before you wreck yourself. So
Yeah, like I said, the other perspective, which I started talking about, I was glad to see so many people come to the response of the doc.
oh yeah,
Yes,
I mean, that's, again, they stood up for what was right,
Yes. Yeah.
because that definitely was right. No matter the color,
Mhm.
you see four people on one person, how can you really stand by
Yes.
with, in good consciousness and allow someone to be attacked?
So I thought I thought that was really good. Again, just standing back and just observing. And we're not talking about individual, like, what started it. Again, as Stacy mentioned here, no, we don't have the whole story yet. But based on what we observed, that I thought was commendable for people coming to the aid of another.
That's the unity.
Yes.
You see something wrong and you act.
Yes.
You see something, you say something.
Mhm. That's what
Yeah.
the talk is. They always talk about people standing by, and there were people standing by filming it, videotaping. They had their phones out, which is how we got to see it. So we thank you. Uh, so there is some benefit to that, though. We've also seen where people videotape and there's no engagement.
No, and they egg on the
Yes,
situation.
yeah,
But I think that for the one that we saw, the person that was videoing, I again commend the accounting of events that
Yes.
was occurring, and that person not jumping in, because it could have, went either way for the videoer as well.
Yes.
So as hard as it was to watch some of the actions that were happening, I commended the person who was doing the video and who captured the majority of the events that went down, and pointing out who the perpetrators, the instigators were, or the initiators
Yes.
of the, what I considered a riot, because it was just a complete melee,
Yes.
right? And I commend that person for doing that and not allowing their emotions to overtake them, and the excitement and the adrenaline I'm sure that they felt to propel them into the actual actions that were going on.
Yes. Mhm. And again, to Stacey's point, yeah, so many people are afraid to step in and help for various reasons, and I'm glad he was aided, and I am too. I'm actually very glad, because what may have happened to him if there was nobody engaged, if they just filmed, or if nobody was around. Who knows
Right.
what would have happened? So,
Right.
Like I said, there's so many. I think we'll say lessons to take away, because again, the videographer played a role as the observer, because there were people already engaged. Now, again, if there was just people videoing and no one was coming to the aid of the individual, even if it was calling the police,
Right. Right.
Um,
Which were in the video.
Yes.
We're already on the
Yes.
dock. So it was like, okay, what's really going on
Yeah.
here? How did it escalate to the point that it did if the police officers were already present and on the scene?
Yes.
But nevertheless, we thank God for intervention, and people that were engaged. And I think that also in this particular video that we saw, it was a clear snapshot, if you will, of what actually went down.
Yes.
And from the vantage point of some of the other videos, there was one young lady on the boat that it appeared that she was involved in the assault, but in the angle that came from the video that we watched, it appeared that this person was really trying to pull one of her boat mates off of the security guard. So it's good to have different perspectives. And I think that's, important to note. It's good to have different perspectives or different viewpoints or vantage points, because you could make the wrong assumption.
Yes.
And that's what a lot of us do. We see a snip or a clip and we run with it.
Yes.
We run with it.
And we have gotten to a point as a society where that plays out so often with, people will post something and folks will get all agitated without ever verifying or validating. Yeah, always do a little research, because there are what they call trolls and bots who do things just to get a reaction out of you. You have to control yourself.
Oh my goodness, that's a whole other discussion, because we know that Meta, or formerly known as Facebook, have been known to, to instigate by creating or using AI, artificial intelligence, to create a scenario to incite a reaction.
Yeah, because it's engagement.
Yes.
Remember, you always have the choice not to engage, especially if it's talking about self-care, survival, because you getting pulled into craziness only disrupts your state of being.
Exactly.
And possibly raising your blood pressure. So you want to be mindful of what you choose to get pulled in, and you also want to verify it. You want to look at the source. Now that may seem like a lot, but once you start doing it, it becomes second nature. Because I ain't responding to this person. Or your principle could be, I don't respond to things that don't involve me. Plain and simple. And trust me, that is a learned behavior, because we pretty much know you see stuff on social media and you just want to respond, and you go, at least for me, I go, you know what? It's not even worth giving them my response, because then I'm going to be engaged in their response. Right.
You get sucked into that funnel.
Yep.
And it's that perpetual, it's like that never ending cycle of, okay, this one last response.
Yep.
And then they come back and it's one last response.
Yep.
And if you've been on Facebook for, a minute, if you were like me, I used to engage.
Yes.
And it was like, why am I interacting with these people? They don't have an intelligent response, and they can't come back with the fact.
Right.
They can't come back with the fact. It's all opinion. Hi, Marilyn. Thanks for joining us tonight.
So you really want to think about, and I know, this, the scripture that says, be, of the world, be in the world, but not of the world. Or
be ye transformed
yes.
by the renewing of your minds, and not by the antics, if you will, of the world.
Where you basically want to become observer. Don't be part of the craziness, because your ego will get you, to be engaged, but your conscience will tell you, leave it alone.
Leave it alone. And that scripture really means that you really want to apply wisdom and rational thought before you react and respond.
Yes. Because actually, going back to connect to this melee, and you mentioned the woman who it first appeared that she was partaking, but she was really trying to pull somebody off of the dock worker. You also want to think about when you engage and the emotions are running high. And this is why I don't want to get into the particulars about who was right and who was wrong, just about our behavior in these situations. Because when you engage in something that's really emotional, you're thinking in a different space. It's actually, as they say, a parallel reality
Mhm.
because you're emotional. And you want to be, that's why you want to train yourself, discipline yourself, that you have the awareness to know I got to approach this differently. Mhm. If I just react and not respond, I may make the situation worse.
Mhm.
Yeah, I may make it worse for myself
Mhm.
or, in totality.
And sometimes that happens in the moment.
Mhm.
So let's not have you think that we don't understand that and we're not part of the human race because we feel emotions in the moment as well. But you can, if you are self-aware in the moment, even after an initial reaction, you can pull yourself back and check yourself
Yes. Mhm.
because you have that presence of mind
Yes.
to snap out of that reaction.
Um, and if you think about people who have this way about them, their sense of self is, I think, so rooted and strong that they discipline themselves to be a person. I'm gonna say a person of peace. They have that inner peace where they don't allow things to move them.
Mhm.
And I've shared that with friends. And again, by no means saying that we are at that place.
Mhm.
We are still on that journey because yes, we have our triggers,
Right.
but it's the goal where we want to get where. And I've said this to friends. They're like, why do you let that person that you don't know disrupt your peace?
Mhm.
Why are you doing that? You just gave away, you know, your power.
It's so funny. I used to work in a very high pressure, high stress role. And I used to face off to sales, and they were very reactionary. Nothing came from them that didn't have to be handled yesterday. I created a sign to hang on my office door, and it was a stop sign. And underneath the stop sign, it stated, stop. Just because you're having a bad day doesn't mean I'm going to allow you to steal my joy.
Yes.
And that hung on the outside of my door because I wanted them to breathe before they came into my office. Because otherwise, it would have been a very reactionary and combative discussion versus them taking a deep breath to come in and explain to me what it was that they needed
Yes.
so that we could have a discussion about next steps.
Right. So that's again one of the takeaways that we, would like for you, to have is thinking through something because you also had an experience this week where the man walked into the place of business and he was upset, and immediately was ready to go off on the person behind the counter. And sometimes the person you're going off on is not the cause of the problem. And those of you know, my philosophy is simply this: you will not know I'm having a bad day if you're not the cause of my bad day.
Mm-hmm.
It's not. I'm gonna put it like this: it's not right for me to do that to you. So again, my bad day, if it was caused by somebody else, I don't think it's right for me to lay that on you. Now, I may not be my normal self, but you won't get the brunt of my bad day. So I think it's on both sides. Coach Mitchell, you put yourself up and forcing somebody or bringing awareness to somebody. Well, let me stop, let me breathe before having a discussion. Because especially if I need you to correct my problem.
Right.
I also tell people, why are you getting mad? You in a place that somebody's serving your food and you want to mouth off? No, you don't do that.
You don't argue with the person who's preparing your food, and you don't kill the golden goose.
Right. and you don't argue with somebody prescribing you medicine either. All right? All right? So you want to think about these things. You're better off if you're unsatisfied, dissatisfied, sorry, to just get up and walk out. But you want to, mouth off and again react and not respond, because if you respond, you're responding to something that's going to help you and help the situation. When you react, you're letting your ego dominate, and rarely does that work out well for you or anyone else.
Yeah.
Yep. That's exactly it. I have a saying, Stacey, that, too often we think through our emotions and our egos and not really with our, higher self or our mind. We get caught up in the emotions, and we're seeing it all too often, which is why we're trying to, challenge, you and challenge. We don't add to the melee that's occurring
and the mayhem that's
yes.
occurring on a much larger level.
Yes, we pretty much, most people will say things need to get better. You know what? When will we learn? You know what? Why is all this happening? Because no one's taking ownership of self.
Yeah.
And we can only change. I think it was Mahatma Gandhi who said, be the change you want to see in the world. And that's hard, because that means we got to work on self. And we, again, by no means saying that we have it all under control. We are on this journey just like you.
Right, exactly. And I think that that's key if we really want to move forward as humanity.
Yes. And that's really our ultimate objective, is how can we contribute to making, this whole experience called life better for all of us.
I think one day at a time, and being mindful of how we react and respond to others around us.
Yes.
In any given situation, and not saying that sometimes we're not going to fly off the handle,
Yes.
because we are human, but being mindful that in those moments, to be consciously aware of our reactions and how we're feeling.
And two things, a good place to start in terms of getting there are two words that I think are really powerful. Being able to be humble enough to say thank you to any and everyone who does the smallest things, such as holding the door for you. And the other thing is also be humble enough to say, I apologize.
Yeah.
Because that, again, sets the foundation that, yes, you have humility. And you're not operating so much from an ego perspective.
And not feeling entitled to
Yes.
someone else's kindness.
So again, saying thank you, and you know what? I apologize when you're wrong. Because one of my pet peeves is for people who do something wrong and then get defensive when you call them on it. Well, as opposed to simply saying, like the young man the other day who, riding around the store on the little
the scooter,
handicap
cart.
Yes. And he said, "Oops, my bad." That was his way of apologizing. He realized, he almost hit you.
Yeah, knowing that he shouldn't have been in the cart,
Right.
Because someone could have been in the front looking for one that really needed it. But like we said yesterday, there are so many young people who would not have even apologized. They would have laughed it off. And the apology came because he had presence of mind to know that, one, he was going a little too fast, and two, he probably shouldn't have been on it.
Correct.
But three, that he almost hit someone.
Yes.
So taking accountability for his actions is basically what we're saying. That's what we should be doing in all situations.
So, when we see all of these things happening, society, you know what? Besides just giving your opinion or taking sides, ask yourself, what is it that we can learn?
Yeah,
What is it that I can learn?
look at the whole picture.
Yes.
Look at the whole picture, because I think we replayed that video
Yeah.
multiple times
Mhm.
just to get a full perspective, as much of a perspective as we could from the clips,
Mhm.
so that we wouldn't have a biased opinion and jump on the bandwagon with everybody else.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
So we wanted to look at it and just take it from the top.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Like, how can we learn as humanity
Yes. Mhm.
to act in a more appropriate, inclusive, and unified manner that will help us grow as people and not leave us in a position where another 400 years pass and our ancestors are doing the same thing and fighting the same fight.
And in addition to that, for those who say, you've heard me say this before, we are moving into a new, I'm gonna say space, energy space. And if you're not aware of it, then you're just not, unfortunately, you're not tuned into those movements. But I believe it came out of the fact that people were tired of the craziness and they went searching for something better. Health and wellness is on the rise, spirituality is on the rise. Returning to nature is on the rise. These are all things that people are looking for because they want to experience the best in humanity.
Yep. And some of us are slipping back, or some of us just haven't been awakened.
Yes.
And that's what we're seeing.
Mm-hmm. So you ask yourself, when these things happen, what can I learn? What would I do? As there used to be a show on TV that, I think the title was "What Would You Do?" Or "What Would I Do?" I forgot the title, but they would stage these situations and then interview people. What would you do? We don't think about those types of situations. So when we're confronted with it, we react as opposed to being able to respond.
Yep.
So just challenge yourself that you want to become better at responding. And it may not be outside, could be in your household. Could be with your significant other, could be with a child, where you get triggered real easily. So be mindful of that.
Absolutely. So with that, we thank you for joining us tonight. We know it was not a charge session, but it is a charge for you to really think about being accountable for your actions and your reactions, and being mindful of what you're feeling in the moment. So I'm Coach Mitchell.
And I'm Coach Dan.
Listen, join us tomorrow night for Inside Outside on Wellness Wednesday, where we are going to bring you a delicious, healthy, antioxidant drink that is made with both fruit and herbs that, ingredients that you would not think to put together, but that is your system. Coach, you look like you had something to say.
No.
Oh, okay.
I do.
Okay.
We apologize if our eye movements seem to be awkward because our cameras, when we're on air, we're looking at each other, which takes our eyes away from the camera. So we apologize if we look like we're
looking off into space. We're actually looking at each other when we're looking up, but Yeah, it's because of our cameras, but nevertheless, we just want to thank you for joining us tonight and thank you for spending that little bit of time that we have run over. Join us tomorrow night for Inside Outside on Wellness Wednesday. Again, we're going to share another great recipe that we think you will love and enjoy and incorporate in your health journey. So I'm Coach Mitchell.
And again, I'm Coach Darren.
We'll see you tomorrow night. Have a great evening. And remember, there will be no next if you do not start now.